welcome everybody to LVMH's acquisition plan for luxury watchmaking company Patek Philippe. We will briefly explain our acquisition plan for this company. The acquisition team is formed by Mary Kate, which is part of the strategic analysis team. Aron and Tommaso form part of the financial team. Julia forms part of the integration team. And finally, myself, Stefano, which is part of the strategic analysis team. Here we have one of the beautiful timepieces that Patek Philippe makes, very high quality, very luxurious, and very high in demand. So let's take a very brief introduction to our target company, Patek Philippe. It was founded in 1839 in the canton of Geneva in Switzerland. This company is no stranger to creating and manufacturing high-quality luxury watches. They've been doing it for more than 180 years, innovating the watchmaking business as well. They have been privately owned by the Stern family since 1932, making them a very tight-knit company, which provide very few financial information and very few information to the public with regards to their manufacturing, sales, etc. They have a huge global presence, 400 retail locations worldwide, and everyone knows about them. Patek Philippe stands only second only to Rolex, and you could in fact say that they are both equal with regards to popularity. Everyone would love to own a Rolex or a Patek Philippe. The reported revenue in 2019 was around $1.49 billion, high revenue, mostly because they do sell quite a few amount of watches compared to other watch manufacturing groups, but they do sell at a very high price, however, because again, of their high luxury status. So, why were we choosing Patek Philippe as our target? First of all, we would love to bolster the watch and jewelry division of our company. LVMH currently has 7 companies in their jewelry and watches division, 3 of them which focus on watches, which are Tag Heuer, Hublot, and Zenith. And on their jewelry department are Bulgari, Fred, Chaumet, and Tiffany & Co., which is our most recent acquisition that we made in 2021, valued at around $15.8 billion. These jewelry companies also do manufacture luxury watches, but not as popular and special as our more specific watch companies. We do need, however, to add a high-end, top-of-the-pyramid luxury watchmaking company. We currently only own 3 high-end watch companies, but they don't stand in the same status as for example, Patek Philippe. With the Tiffany & Co. acquisition, we did acquire one of those high-end, top-of-the-pyramid companies for our jewelry part. And for example, for our luxury division, fashion luxury division, we have brands like Louis Vuitton there. So again, we would definitely need a Patek Philippe in our watch division company to make ourselves very, very competitive. As we see in the graph below, Patek Philippe is just below us, as LVMH as a whole group has 7.1% of the market share with luxury watches, whereas Patek Philippe has 5.8% of the market share, very near us. And by acquiring them, it would enable us to almost double our market share and become a lot more competitive in this industry. Again, brand status. Patek Philippe is one of the most well-known luxury watch companies in the world, along with Rolex. It is a perfect fit for us. It is family owned. It has a lot of heritage and history of making luxury watches, major global presence, and it would only complement our lower tiered watchmaking brands. Basically, we would add a brand new bracket of customers to this branch, as for example, we did with Tiffany & Co. It would also allow us to increase our sales in watches at around 1.3 to 1.5 billion euros or dollars, which is the amount of money that Patek Philippe has been making in sales in the recent years. And as previously mentioned, it would allow to double our market. reaching nearer to the market shares of our competitors. The president of Patek Philippe also had announced that they would target around a 3% growth per year, a very slow one. And this is aligned to the views of LVMH, as LVMH tends to grow their companies very slowly because, again, they're high-end luxury watch companies. Take things slowly, but making high-quality products. Another reason why we think that Patek Philippe makes sense as an acquisition is because of the relationship and partnership that Patek Philippe has had historically with our most recent acquisition, Tiffany & Co. Tiffany & Co. was one of the first and exclusive retailers in the United States for Patek Philippe. They were able to print their names into Patek Philippe watches and sell these exclusive models, which currently are in very high demand and aren't found anywhere else and sell for very, very high prices. Patek Philippe makes sense because it is a feasible deal, and unlike a company like Rolex, which is a non-profit organization, they would have, for example, to restructure the entire company in order to be able to make a sale possible. Patek Philippe is a privately owned company, so enabling a sale would be much easier. And it doesn't make sense to go for another company, for example, like Aron van Meurs. They just have a lower market share, lower sales. And at the end of the day, Patek Philippe has the much higher status and luxury quality to them. This is why we believe that Patek Philippe is the perfect company to acquire to bolster our watch and jewelry division. Next, my colleagues are going to continue presenting.
Now we will talk about the due diligence of this deal. Patek Philippe is, of course, a family-owned company, so being able to give them the autonomy to continue their work is paramount to a successful integration with LVMH. Patek Philippe has been family-owned since 1932. Today, Thierry Stern is the president, while his father, Philippe Stern, the former president, now stands as the honorary president after his son succeeded him in 2009. Keeping this family tradition intact would be very important to this deal. Patek Philippe also employs 1,600 people around the world. To avoid an overbloated workforce, keeping only the most skilled watchmakers out of that 1,600 is important. Patek Philippe's advertising strategy focuses on tradition and the timelessness of their watches. This would integrate seamlessly with LVMH. Patek Philippe has registered over 100 patents and 20 basic calibers over the course of its history, such as the caliber 89 in 1989. LVMH would be obtaining some of the most exclusive and revolutionary watchmaking technologies by acquiring this deal. Now we will continue with a SWOT analysis of Patek Philippe to illustrate why it is a good choice to acquire. So their strengths include patents registered since 1851 that LVMH would be acquiring, strong brand presence that emphasizes tradition and quality, and a strong clientele base often associated with royalty. Their weaknesses include very few storefronts. The Patek Philippe salons are only in Geneva, London, and Paris. They also have a limited presence in developing economies, where a demand for luxury goods is on the rise. Their opportunities include breaking into those emerging economies, expanding an already limited product range, and increased advertising efforts. Their threats come mostly from counterfeiters, and of course, more people are relying on their phones to tell the time and not buying expensive watch pieces. Overall, we can see that Patek Philippe will be a fantastic new addition to LVMH.
Perfect. And now we will continue with the financial analysis of the Patek Philippe acquisition by LVMH. And to do this, we will first look at one of Patek's most signature watches, which is the Nautilus 5711 1A, and how they create their own demand for it. Because what Patek Philippe does is it creates, it makes sure that the supply of the watches is lower than the demand for it. So it becomes a collector's item, and therefore the price will automatically drive up. And we can see this with the Nautilus in 2013, it was worth $28,000. And in 2017, it was worth $40,000. And now in 2019, it's worth $88,000. And the price is even skyrocketing more because in the start of 2021, Patek announced that they will discontinue the production of the Nautilus, which will make it a collector's item because there won't be produced any more of them. So it's hard to estimate the value of Patek Philippe because it's a privately owned family company, because there's no public data available. So what we did is we looked at two acquisitions. One is the most recent acquisition of Tiffany & Co. in 2020, and also the acquisition of Bulgari, which is also a luxury watch company, in 2011. And what is basically common for these two acquisitions is the Arnault style, which is the CEO of LVMH. And the Arnault style basically means that they pay 4.5 times the revenue of the company, and also a premium, because most of these acquisitions are hostile. So they have to pay an extra premium in order to convince shareholders to sell their company. And for Bulgari, this basically means that they had a revenue of $926 million a year. So if we use the Arnault style, we have 4.5 times $0.926 billion, which is 4.2 billion. And they paid a premium of $1 billion extra. So the total acquisition price became $5.2 billion. And they paid this in both stock and cash, 65% stock and 44% cash. And they did this because the Bulgari family obviously had a very strong affiliation with the Bulgari brand. And by allowing them to have so much stock, sell them so much stock, basically means that they have an influence in the LVMH company, and they still have influence over the Bulgari brand. However, for Tiffany & Co, this was different because it was a hostile acquisition of a listed company in 2020, and the revenue stream were $2.3 billion a year. So with the Arnault style, it's 4.5 times 2.3 billion is 10.35 billion. However, for Tiffany, LVMH paid a premium of $5 billion. So the total acquisition price was $15.8 billion. And this was due to the heavy revenue drop of Tiffany in 2020, because they went from a revenue of $4.4 billion to a revenue of $2.3 billion in 1 year. But also because Tiffany has other benefits, like a very low cost structure, and also complementary sales opportunities for other LVMH brands within the company. And for Tiffany, they paid everything in cash because the shareholders of Tiffany didn't need any influence over the brand anymore. So that's why they paid everything in cash. And now Tommaso will tell you something more about the evaluation of Patek Philippe and our final acquisition offer.
Okay, thank you then, Aron, for the clear explanation. I will now go on with the Patek Philippe evaluation. So as we said, we used comps to reach a final value for this company, which was estimated between $7 and $10 billion. Our final offer, though, will be $7 billion. So exactly more or less 4.5 times sales of Patek Philippe in 2019, which was a strategy for Arnault and LVMH in previous deals. Furthermore, since we think that this will be an hostile acquisition, we thought that we had to add a premium, which will be $1 billion. So the final offer from LVMH for Patek Philippe will be $8 billion. How to pay this $8 billion? We thought that the best way would be to pay 40% in cash. So around $3.2 billion would be paid in cash, and the 60% will be paid in stocks, so that the Stern family could keep control over the company even after our acquisition. We think that this would be a nice deal for both parties, but especially for LVMH, since they wouldn't have big problems to pay this amount in cash, since from the balance sheet of 2019, we saw that they had $8 billion cash, and they expected also to increase it in the next years. And also we calculated the break-even point just to have an idea on how much would it take to repay the initial investment. And this would be around 5 years and 2 months. So it's not a long time for such a huge investment. That's why we thought that our offer and our strategy would be a valuable one. Now we'll leave the floor to Julia, which will explain the integration plan.
So, lastly, we would like to quickly cover the plan for the integration process. The goal of the path and decisions we're taking in this key process are to create value where possible, however, preserve Patek Philippe's existing strengths. LVMH, of course, has a very long and rich history of acquisitions, in which we all gained loads of experience. And for the integration process, experience is really a key element. We all know the impact of the integration process on the after acquisition company performance, and therefore it's really important that we get this right. So in terms of integration, we are thinking of low strategic interdependence and a healthy balance in the share of autonomy that LVMH will take over from Patek Philippe. Research sharing in terms of production processes is low for LVMH brands. However, we definitely see possibilities of knowledge transfers and knowledge spillovers, especially in terms of marketing, sales, design, and financial processes. This could be beneficial. However, I do want to stress that we only see this as an opportunity when it's complementary to the value of the brand and never at the cost of the brand. Over time, the autonomy of Patek Philippe will gradually decrease, and the share and the role that LVMH is playing will increase. Of course, we need to do this with respect and patience, as we are working with a family business here. However, as LVMH is a family business, we do have the real-life experience and understanding that can definitely contribute to this complicated process. Looking at the timeline, we have to be patient, not go too fast, and use the foundation of experience that we have to fill in the timeline. It is possible that we need to refine the path along the way. And well, in terms of time, we're speaking of years rather than months, I think. It's a complicated process. And once again, it's really important that we get this right. So summing up all that we have presented here for you today, we think that Patek Philippe's exquisite caliber would make a perfect fit in LVMH portfolio of distinguished houses. We want to thank you very much for your attention and are happy to answer any questions either right now or later in time. Thank you.